The rain fell gently over Manhattan that afternoon, a soft drizzle that made the streets shimmer under the city lights. Thomas Whitaker, a self-made millionaire and CEO of one of New York's most prestigious real estate firms, sat in the back of his sleek black limousine. The world outside passed by in a blur, neon signs, umbrellas, yellow cabs, but his mind was elsewhere. He had just left a board meeting where he'd closed a multi-million-dollar deal, yet the weight in his chest had nothing to do with business. It had everything to do with his daughter, Lily. At 10 years old, Lily had survived a horrific car accident 6 months earlier. Since then, she had been bound to crutches and leg braces. Thomas had the money, the best doctors, and a private team of therapists, yet none of that could heal the sadness in her eyes. She didn't laugh like she used to. Her once bright, adventurous spirit had dimmed, as if the crash had not only fractured her bones but stolen part of her soul. That day, as the limo paused near Central Park for a traffic jam, Thomas glanced out of the tinted window and noticed something that made his heart still. Lily had insisted on walking through the park with her nanny, claiming she needed the air. The driver had planned to pick her up at the other end. But now, there she was, struggling down a sidewalk, one crutch slipping on a slick patch of pavement. Thomas's heart lurched. He was about to jump out of the car when someone reached her first, a boy, no older than Lily. The boy couldn't have been more than 11. He wore a worn-out hoodie and shoes with frayed soles. A small backpack, patched with duct tape, clung to his back. His hands were rough, likely from work rather than play. But his eyes, Thomas noticed, were full of something rare, kindness. The boy gently caught Lily before she fell, adjusting her crutches and steadying her with surprising care. Then he bent down, tied her loose shoelace, and said something that made her smile. Truly smile, for the first time in weeks. Thomas couldn't hear the words, but the expression on Lily's face was enough to move him. The driver was about to pull away, but Thomas held up his hand. "Stop the car," he said, pushing open the door and stepping into the rain. As he approached, he watched the boy help Lily onto a nearby bench, shielding her with his own tiny umbrella. Thomas reached them just as the boy was about to walk away. "Hey," Thomas called gently, unsure of how to approach. The boy turned around, a little startled. "Sir." Thomas knelt beside Lily, brushing a wet strand of hair from her face. "Are you okay?" Lily nodded. "Daddy, this is Jacob. He helped me. My crutch almost slipped." Thomas looked at the boy, really looked at him now. He was shivering slightly from the rain. His clothes were damp, his fingers red from the cold. Yet he hadn't hesitated to help a stranger. "Thank you, Jacob," Thomas said sincerely. "That was very kind of you." Jacob shrugged. "She looked like she needed help. Anyone would have done it." "No," Thomas said, "not everyone would have." There was a pause before Thomas asked, "Do you live around here?" Jacob hesitated, eyes flickering. "Sort of. My mom and I stay near the shelters. We move around a lot." The words hit Thomas like a punch to the chest. Something in his gut told him this wasn't just a passing moment. He asked Jacob if he'd like a ride home. The boy looked wary but nodded when Lily smiled and said, "Please come. Daddy's car is warm." On the way, Thomas asked him questions, gentle ones. Jacob's mother worked long hours at a diner and cleaned offices at night. He hadn't seen his dad in years. Jacob often helped her by watching his younger sister, sometimes collecting recyclables after school to buy groceries. Yet he never complained. "You're in school?" Thomas asked. "Yeah. I like math and science. I want to be an engineer one day." Thomas was silent. Jacob reminded him of himself at that age, back when he too had nothing but a dream and a mother who worked herself to the bone. They dropped Jacob at a rundown apartment building. Before the boy got out, Thomas handed him a business card. "Jacob, if you or your mom ever need anything, call me. I mean it. Jacob nodded politely, probably assuming he'd never hear from the man again. But the next day, Thomas showed up at Jacob's school with the principal's permission. He had already arranged something special. At the end of the school day, Jacob was called to the office. There stood Thomas, smiling. "I have a surprise for you," he said. They drove to a new neighborhood, where a small but beautiful two-bedroom apartment waited, fully furnished, prepaid for a year. A scholarship had already been arranged at a private school with STEM focus. A part-time job offer was lined up for Jacob's mother, with better hours and pay. Everything, just like that. Jacob's mother cried when she saw it. Why are you doing this?" Thomas put a hand on Jacob's shoulder. "Because your son reminded my daughter how to smile. And he reminded me of something I'd forgotten, that kindness doesn't come from wealth, but from the heart." Weeks passed. Lily and Jacob became fast friends. She began laughing more, pushing herself harder in therapy. Jacob encouraged her, challenged her to race him, even when she was slow and wobbly. And she loved every second of it. One morning, Thomas received a handwritten letter from Jacob. It read, "Mr. Whitaker, thank you for everything. I don't know why you chose to help me, but I promise I won't waste it. One day, I'll help someone else the way you helped me. You didn't just change my life, you changed how I see the world." That night, Thomas sat by Lily's bedside as she read a book Jacob had given her. For the first time in months, he felt something shift inside, a sense of peace, of purpose. All his wealth, his empire, the deals and meetings. They meant nothing compared to this. One small act of kindness had created ripples far beyond what he imagined. And all because a poor boy had reached out a hand to help a girl on crutches in the rain. The world didn't need more billionaires. It needed more Jacobs. And more people willing to notice them. From that day forward, Thomas began a foundation in Jacob's name, the Helping Hand Project, to support children like him, those who helped others even when they themselves had little. Because sometimes, it takes the smallest hands to lift the heaviest hearts.